Stylistically, they framed it as an audition process.
Once again, covering the BFI Flare Film Festival with Sean Vickers for Boys on Film. My name is Phil. Thank you very much for being here. Don't forget to subscribe. We've got lots of other content, lots of other reviews of shorts and features at this quite brilliant film festival this year. Today, a really fascinating documentary, and we've seen so many documentaries that have just delivered this year. This is No Ordinary Man. Sean, tell us about this.
So, No Ordinary Man is from the United States. It's directed by Chin-Yee and Joynt, and it is the story of Billy Tipton, who is an admired jazz musician from the 40s and 50s. And when he died in 1989, he has a wife and son. The world learned that Billy was trans, but they learnt through this kind of like jaw-droppingly insensitive piece of writing. And No Ordinary Man really follows Billy's life and the legacy of what he gave to the world, really, not only through music but through being himself. So yeah,
I thought this was absolutely fascinating, a brilliant documentary, although I have to say it kind of only touched on the surface, which I'm glad about, because I think there is that tendency now to want to know more about what he was doing, particularly with his music and his career, because that was obviously talked about and it was discussed, but I feel like I need to know more about what he did professionally, because he was obviously very respected as a jazz musician. He played so many venues at that time, and back in the 40s, obviously jazz, a massive thing in itself. The genre was really respected, and he did actually go on to support lots of really big, jazz musicians and jazz bands. But yeah, I kind of want to know more about that now that I've seen the more personal side of his life, because he was a very private person as well.
I thought this was really, again, all the documentaries this year have really blown my mind. This one I thought was wonderful. It reminded me a little bit of Keyboard Fantasies that we talked about for London Film Festival.
Oh yeah,
regarding Beverly Glenn Copeland. I particularly love a music biodoc, and that gave me that spirit. And it's just very interesting because why I think this was enriched was there was an amazing cast of talking heads and some really incredible heroes of mine. So Kate Bornstein, Zachary Drucker, really talking and speaking truth to power about what happened with Billy and his legacy. And I just thought it was amazing and really quite powerful. And as you're right, he was a very personal, very private person who was playing kind of like, he's like a regional jazz musician, touring in big bands. And then, this moment where, I forget the name of the lady, it will come to me, Diane Middlebrook.
Yeah.
She wrote this biography, which is basically like trans deceit. It was just transphobia, and where all of this story kind of emerged.
And that's what angered me about this documentary, because there was a lot of footage, archive footage, particularly the Oprah Winfrey show. And there were chat shows where people were just using the worst language, really disrespectful language. I guess because they didn't understand, because I think more people do understand now. But yeah, it really angered me because there was no respect for him as a person. And then, you think about it, this guy died at the age of 74, 75. His son features in the documentary as well, which I thought was really touching, because he'd learnt a lot, obviously, as well, and he'd carried a lot with him. He'd carried a lot of that negativity that the media were pushing onto him and his family.
His son, in a way, his mind is kind of blown at the impact that his father has had on the trans community and wider. And that's what I was kind of taken aback by, because these people approach him and describe the impact that Billy Tipton has had on their life, and he's slightly blown away by it. People are desperate to paint people into boxes, and often, people will paint people in boxes based on their genitalia, and gender is not about genitalia. And so there's so much of that was coming through and still does come through. In today's parlance, Billy is transmasculine, but that still exists. And that's what I loved about some of the talking heads that were on there, because it was brilliant because it was trying to pivot away from this idea, you know, and there were some brilliant bits about sexuality and gender that were brought up, which I thought were enlightening and incredible viewpoints, correct viewpoints about the way the world works, which is what blew me away about this documentary, because I found myself like clapping or slapping my fingers at certain points at the screen going, yes, that is completely correct. You know, human beings are human beings, live and let live. It's just, you know, let people be who they wish to be.
Absolutely.
So I thought it was incredibly powerful, and also to find out a lot more about Billy Tipton, and just for the viewers, they kind of stylistically they framed it as an audition process. So they had actors coming in to play Billy Tipton and talk about their experiences of and their understanding of him as a musician and as a kind of trans hero. So yeah, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was great.
I thought that was a really great way of adding depth to the documentary as well, because it gave it a slant almost from people that, you know, had experienced this. And obviously because Billy was such a private person as well and so professional in his job, you know, there must have been so much uncertainty that he carried too, and so much fear.
There was some fantastic thoughts around gender being on a spectrum, sexuality being on a spectrum, and, you know, just the Western construct of binary male and female, straight or gay, and just this idea of like we need to move away from it, because what you're describing earlier when you watch those old Oprah documentaries is someone trying to pigeonhole, because that's how society has defined human beings. Yeah. And that's what I loved about this documentary, because it was pushing hard on those kind of like constructs and saying it's nonsense. This is how I feel. I'm a human being. This is how I feel. And I thought that was incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and it's great that the people featured in this documentary as well, the talking heads, they were asked, you know, at the end, what question would you ask Billy as well, which I thought was great, because I thought to myself, you know, what question would I ask? And they all kind of asked, you know, questions that were related to his profession and the career, which I thought was amazing, because it was him as a person.
I mean, for me, Kate Bornstein is in this documentary. I've read a lot of her work. She's an absolute personal hero of mine. Anything where Kate has the ability to talk on camera, she's like an oracle, and therefore should be allowed. You know?
Yeah.
So I was absolutely thrilled that she was part of, as you know, there's many, like I said, Zachary Drucker was in this documentary as well, and many other brilliant people. So yeah, fantastic, great.
Okay, so star rating, it's a 4 for me. I thought it was great.
And it's a 4 from me.
We agree.
That's so rare.
Star ratings are so difficult, though, aren't they? Sometimes I want to give a half, because I know you're not that keen on rounding it up.
Again, I don't like whole stars. I might give a quarter of a star. Stop being so binary, Phil, with the stars.
Something to learn, I think, for next time. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe for more content, because there's plenty more on the way. And we'll see you next time.